Please stand and join us. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. Love is my source, love is my power, love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, love gives me everything I need. Peace is my source, peace is my power, peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, peace gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. We're going to teach you a new song this morning. It's called Leap of Faith. We'll take it one line at a time for you first. I will take this leap of faith. Do that with me. I will take this leap of faith. Okay. Spread my wings and fly. Spread my wings and fly. I will know the truth of who I am. Try that. I will know the truth of who I am, and I will write it on the sky, and I will write it on the sky. Can you feel this? And I will take this leap of faith, spread my wings and fly. I will know the truth of who I am, and I will write it on the sky. I will take this leap of faith, spread my wings and fly. I will know the truth of who I am, and I will write it on the sky. I will take this leap of faith, spread my wings and fly. I will know the truth of who I am. I will write it on the sky. I will know the truth of who I am. And I will write it on the sky. Have a seat.
Good morning. My name is Ron, and it is my pleasure to stand in front of you and see all these God-filled, loving faces. Please join me in waving hello to our online friends. Good morning. Your presence adds to our spiritual community, and you are greatly appreciated by us. Before we begin our service, let's make sure that our cell phones are completely off so it won't disrupt the sound system. Thank you. We're blessed to have as our musicians today Bev Barnett and Greg Newland, and who is joined by our own Meg Diamond. So let us open this service by focusing our attention through our opening affirmation. Please join me in prayerfully and powerfully speaking it together 3 times. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. And again, there is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. And once again, there is one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. And let us continue reading aloud this statement of our unity. God's love is within each of us, guiding us to dynamically express our wholeness, wisdom, and abundance. We acknowledge the universal wisdom in Christ's teachings and in all spiritual paths. I now choose to open to the presence of divine love and to be changed at death. Throughout this sacred time, God is uplifting me and through my heart, the world. And now I'd like to invite our heart minister, Mike, to read the daily word.
Today's word is awakening. Every time I pray, every time I have a realization of the Christ power within me, I awaken to my spiritual nature. As I let the light of Christ shine within my consciousness, I release old ways of living and open to a new life, a new way of being. Early Christians told the story of Lazarus, who appeared to be dead to everyone except Jesus, who called him from the tomb. My Christ nature can transcend any appearance or condition and allow me to awaken to a new life of oneness and wholeness, of harmony and abundance, of understanding and peace. By turning to the Christ presence within me, I awaken my spirit. I hear my Christ nature calling me, and I awaken to a new life. From John 11:11, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him. And our affirmation today is, through the power of my Christ nature, I awaken to a new life. Would you like to say that with me? Through the power of my Christ nature, I awaken to a new life. Let's do it one more time. Through the power of my Christ nature, I awaken to a new life.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day and dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people walking by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies crying, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Thank you. I'm going to highlight a few events we're going to have here at our center. The details of these and other wonderful activities are going to be in your bulletin and on our website. First thing I'm going to mention is join your Unity community on July 4th. It's a bring your own whatever barbecue. So whatever you want to barbecue, please bring it, and also along with a side dish or salad to share. We provide the drinks, the ice cream, the kids' games, and fun. You can laugh at that, it's okay. And our leadership training is on July 10th for those who are currently or intended at some time to lead small or large groups or committees. Please read today's bulletin for the details. The Spiritual Education and Enrichment team has put together a beautiful brochure, and it's on our patio after the service. You could pick it up. And our musicians, Bev Barnett and Greg Nolan, will have their CD available on the patio after the service. Also, they're going to have a mailing list so you can find out about their new CD, which is due out in September. So it's time to welcome our new guests. If you are here with us for the first time, we invite you to raise your hands so that we can acknowledge you. Oh, cool, great. We welcome you into our spiritual community, and you are greatly appreciated. I did that, okay. Please keep your hand in the air while our ushers bring to you a gift of a shell lei. On that lei is an affirmation that says, just as God has designed for every shell of the sea, so God has a design for your life. We open our arms and send in sincere blessing from our hearts as we affirm together, we love you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ-light as you. Thank you for being here today. And now let's take a moment and greet each other.
Good morning.
Now, what am I supposed to do?
Right after release.
He's going to do it. He's going to talk about the meditation. I need to see you first, and then I'll close it out. So he'll introduce it.
Okay.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all myself, and I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient, and I didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you've got to let it go. Let it all go. And this is what you've got to say. Now I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. My heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. Well, no more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God.
I can't help it. Charles Fillmore said that to pray joyfully, and this is one of my favorite parts of our service. So I would like to invite you to prepare for our time in prayer and meditation with a smile on your face. And our meditation this morning will be led by CL.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Alleluia, alleluia. Ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. Alleluia, alleluia.
It is an honor to gather together in prayer and meditation, to connect heart to heart with one another in faith. We are one in God, and we prepare to experience the abundant goodness of God by opening our hearts in sacred prayer and meditation. Let us center ourselves in the power of God. Embraced by divine love, we rest in the sacredness of God's peace. We breathe deeply through our hearts, becoming aware of the presence of God within. With each inhalation, we relax more fully. With each exhalation, we release the concerns of the day. We focus on our oneness with God. I'm asking you to visualize a small ball of golden light within you. Notice that it grows and expands to encompass your whole being with each breath you take. As God's beloved, we are filled with that divine light. And now breathe deeply through your heart. Become aware that divine light is leading you on the right path. Release any doubt or concern, and experience a deep peace within your soul, a peace that assures you that the light of God is continually protecting you. Still your thoughts. Rest in the stillness of prayer. Trust God's guiding light as you enter into a time of silent meditation and prayer. And with Jesus' words, peace, be still. Peace, be still. With gratitude, we now turn our thoughts to love and peace in a spirit of oneness with one another and with every person in the world, whether church or synagogue or mosque. We affirm our oneness with our loved ones and with those in our community. We affirm our oneness with those across our nation and across the world. We affirm we are one with God, and we all say, Amen.
We're always looking down the road that lies ahead. Tomorrow's fears are spinning round inside our heads. What if all our thoughts could change the world instead? We question the grand design. Join the search for any meaning we can find. trouble is that we're all looking for a sign. When now is what we are.
Just know the world is spinning safely at your feet. Show up and vow to be right here until you leave. No moment, past or future, could ever be so sweet.
Instead of opening every door to find relief, just take the gifts that have been left here at your feet and
Look with love on every stranger that you meet.
'Cause now is what we are. 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 Now is what we are.
Thank you very much for your music. That touched my heart. God, I hate this thing. Excuse me. I forgot where I was. It's my pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, Garrett Rieg. Garrett is an attorney who has taught many classes in theosophy, science, history, and spirituality. His emphasis is on comparative religion, nonviolent communication, heart math, and spirituality. You will not want to miss his workshop this afternoon on near-death experiences. Please join me in welcoming Garrett Rieg.
Thank you. Well, good morning. It's a beautiful day, first week of summer, and we have the light shining right down into the congregation. You know, the ancients were very conscious of the light because they didn't have electricity or candles. They couldn't stay up till midnight like a lot of us. So this is a very special time for our ancestors, and it still, I think, resounds in our hearts. A time when nature is at its fullest, and everything's productive and growing and learning. We've already gone through the birth cycle, and now we're in the full growth cycle. So I should tell you a little bit about why I'm here, aside from giving Reverend David a welcome break. We are so blessed to have Reverend David, and he does share with us so much that's educating us in the highest sense, inspiring us, even entertaining us. And I've been privileged to do a lot of teaching here at Unity, a variety of subjects. I also have classes at my home. The one that's most relevant today is a class in what we call consciousness, science, and spirit. And one of the natural subjects for that class came up. I sent Reverend David some notes that we had from it. And he thought, you know, that's a topic that would be really great for our congregation to hear about. And what I've discovered is a lot of our congregation knows a lot about it already. And the subject, especially for newcomers, may seem a little heavy, but the message is really a light one in every sense. And it's a subject that in many religious traditions, or at least institutions, can be heavy and sad, but in Unity, generally, it's an uplifting one. And that's especially the message today. Its subject is near-death experiences. Now, that's a term that didn't even exist 40 years ago. It was invented by Dr. Raymond Moody, who learned about these experiences that people were having more and more. Dr. Moody was originally a PhD in philosophy, going on to be a professor of philosophy. He happened to go to a lecture by a doctor who had been fascinated by stories that people brought back when they had almost died. And he was so caught up in the subject and the possibilities that he dropped his career after he'd already got his PhD, started over as a medical doctor. And he spent his life studying near-death experiences and still writing and being filmed about them. He coined the term for a very intense, and the only term really is spiritual experience for 90% of these, that occurs to people most often when they have had their heart stop from an accident, an illness, a drug reaction. And then very quickly the brain loses oxygen, has no way to continue with its electrical activity, slows down and stops. When the brain stops, there's no senses. You're even beyond being knocked out as you would be, for an operation. We say it's flatlining. It's totally smooth, no electrical impulse at all. They could cut your arm off, you wouldn't feel it. You can't see anything even if your eyes were peeled open. You are technically dead. And this can last for several minutes. And then people can go into comas for days or weeks, years even. But what happens often within minutes, people are out for minutes, they have experiences that are so real that they often come back with a totally changed outlook on life, a change in their electric and magnetic functions, which can be measured by doctors and scientists. They come back with extrasensory perceptions. And they come back most especially with an incredible message, which is almost universal, which is the same message from all of the ancient mystical traditions. And that's what got me hooked as a theosophist, because I was saying, well, this sounds so much like even Plato, Confucius, Buddha. You go to any of the really deep mystical traditions behind all the different organized religions, and there is usually a very great similarity in the message. And it's maybe a coincidence that with our great technology, we now can save all these people. And as a result, we're getting all these incredible mystical experiences. They're not that different from mystical experiences that many people have, usually much briefer. But they're so incredibly colorful and creative and both unique and yet similar that it's a great field of growing research. So that's what we're trying to share today. And I was blessed because in our classes that we had in the Consciousness Meetup, I had 2 students associated with Unity here who had somewhat different near-death experiences and could speak from a first-hand point of view. And they're a little more shy than I am. They'll be more comfortable in the workshop this afternoon. But their messages resonate very deeply. Very different backgrounds. Sean comes from the Midwest, Kansas, had a very troubled childhood, very dangerous childhood, very scary. At age 13, she had pretty much died, went to the hospital, very serious conditions, and had a near-death experience that mirrors most of the 10 or 12 common features of near-death experiences. And it turned her life around, gave her great purpose, helped her to recover her health and her sanity, because she had been stretched to the limit. and I don't want to be too personal. I'll let her tell her story this afternoon. But she went on to raise 4 children, and she has 4 grandchildren now. And she had her experience way before Dr. Moody ever coined the term or wrote the first book on near-death experiences. So she didn't know what it was. She kept it to herself for years. There was no one to relate to in Kansas, in the very fundamentalist community, about it. So when she got Raymond Moody's book, she was overjoyed that here was a recognition of what she went through, and it was not, unique. She wasn't crazy. Amy had her experience much more recently, and she came from a somewhat fundamentalist background, and yet her messages were all very much unity-like, very much all loving and open to all different spiritual paths instead of the very narrow one that she and her family had been in. So it totally changed her view of the world. And a lot of us have had at least brief mystical experiences, and maybe some NDEs. People come up to me now that they hear that this is going on and share. And these experiences not only are otherworldly, but they usually have a very positive, deep impact on our lives and how we see the world. I'm not asking anybody to share, but it would be interesting to see, if you're brave enough, how many people in this group have actually had some kind of significant, slightly life-changing at least, mystical experience. You want to share with me? Yes. I think in Unity we have a much greater percentage of these. But it's kind of amazing that when I first learned about NDEs, they were estimating, according to Gallup polls, that there were almost 8 million people in the United States who'd had an NDE, an experience out of body when they were technically dead or close to it. Wall Street Journal reported in October there are now 15 million people. And part of that may be the fact that not only do we have the technology to bring people back, we also have a much more open society, partly thanks to organizations like Unity. The New Age is accepting of these events and people having spiritual, mystical experiences. We're no longer looked upon as strange or exceptional or weird. And these experiences are so powerful that it's really important that we be open to them and accepting of them. Because I believe there's lots of wisdom in them. I wanted to share some of those experiences with you. And one reason we're having this workshop is that when you hear the experience from someone who's actually had it, you can connect on many levels. It's much more meaningful. We have great scientists now. We've had a dozen different doctors and scientists who've done studies all over the world of near-death experiences. And the research is quite mutually supportive. Even in Asia, people have very similar experiences. In fact, it's kind of fascinating. The only major difference they've seen between the East and the West, of course, there's differences in people's interpretation of who the angels or the old elder brothers are when they go to heaven, so to speak. But in the East, for example, people go directly to a realm of light. In the West, most of us go through a darkness, a tunnel, at high speed before the light becomes apparent. Interesting little twist. There's lots of these conundrums that science is going to have to figure out in the next 50 years. It's kind of fun to be on the leading edge of this. So these studies, I won't go through them because the message is more important for Unity people, but they have studied oftentimes 1,000 or 1,300 people, all doing questionnaires and all figuring out. And statistically, to get this kind of corroboration and similarity, the odds are 1 in a billion or more. So there's something real there. And the scientists who have studied it, most of them say it could not be just some chemical reaction in the brain. And there's a lot of objective evidence that something's going on. The most interesting is that in the first experiences, very often people have their consciousness separate from the body. They don't realize it at first. What they usually are aware of is they're looking down and they see something going on with lots of people running around. And then they look closer, they're kind of fascinated by this, and they see a body there. Oh, something terrible's happened. It takes them a while to realize that body is them, or is their body. Obviously, in Unity, we know that their real identity is the spirit, the consciousness. And their first reaction usually is, I feel fine, I'm happy. I'm actually in a period of bliss. What are these people so concerned about my body down there? Why are they so scared and shocked and worried about resuscitating me or pulling me out of the swimming pool? And they want to reach out and say, it's okay, I'm fine. And of course, the people can't hear them. And that's sometimes when they first realize that they are, quote, dead. So, they also remember having seen these things. And often they can recount to people what went on, who came out, who went in, who tried this or that. And in fact, one of the great doctors who's done research in this field is a specialist in child trauma care, Dr. Melvin Morse. Dr. Morse, up in Seattle, started his career, and one of his first patients, I think she was a drowning patient, 8 years old little girl. He came to her bedside as she recovered, and she said, Dr. Morse, you said some nutty words. You shouldn't talk like that. My parents won't let me say those words. He says, what do you mean? She says, when you were working on me, you were swearing. And the doctor said, yes, I was. How would you know that? She was just coming to. No one had talked to her or anything. And he, of course, remembered that he was very frustrated because he thought he was losing this little girl, that she was not going to come back. And Dr. Morse, like a lot of us, used some words that were somewhat profane, assuming that this child would not be hearing him. But the child went on to tell him what instruments he used in operating on her and what the nurses did. And he was totally dumbfounded. And then she explained that she had gone to heaven. And she talked about meeting her guardian angel and about all these wonderful messages of how we're all one and how life is about loving people. And, the most important thing was how you get along with your family and friends. And it was her spiritual message as well that struck this doctor. And he's continued to study these patients and collected a lot of their stories. And I got to hear him on one of those late night shows where I think it's called Coast to Coast AM. And he shares these stories that people shared with him. So I was going to explain to you why the stories are important and the messages and hearing them directly or even reading them. Because we can share in the experience. And especially when it's alive from another person. A lot of you have studied heart math. I imagine half the people here have heard through Reverend David and others about the experiments in Santa Cruz by these physicists and psychologists. And they've shown that our state of mind is communicated to others. We have the power to change the physical world just with our intentions, especially when they're on a higher plane. At Heart Math and other places, they have been able to change just by intending to change. For example, the pH in a water solution. And that takes extra electrons. But they've scientifically studied it. The pH is 5, they can change it to 7 or 8. The pH is 6, they can change it down to 2. There's no known physical way to do that. And if you take the cells from your body and put them in a Faraday cage where there's no communication, radio waves, or anything can get in, and then you show a person who's done that shocking or titillating pictures, their skin cells or blood cells in the other screened-off room react instantly to those images because they're still connected on a higher plane of consciousness. So when we tell our stories and share our experiences, it's not just the information. It's the imprint of the impression from our hearts, which radiate electromagnetic waves. And those waves, and also our thoughts, have been shown to be able to go from here, the West Coast, to Korea, faster than the speed of light, instantaneous. This is modern science, which gives credibility to a lot of the after-death experiences, because otherwise they are beyond belief. I think I will share with you an experience so you get a taste for it. This is from Professor Ring, University of Connecticut. He gives a semester class on near-death experiences. One of his students, college student, came in and told about an experience he'd had the summer before. He was water rafting, and he was actually on a big inner tube. He went down some rapids, went underwater, got stuck in the rocks and the boulders underwater. And his friends came over and couldn't even find him for a long time. He's down there for minutes, okay? And as I mentioned before, he's one of those who came up above and could see all the commotion and had this feeling about wanting to communicate and couldn't, realizing he's dead. And then, and this is very typical, and this is something that's in many different mystical traditions, and certainly in the Theosophic literature from 1880, he had what they call a panoramic life review. This is the learning part of the near-death experience. And about half of everybody has that review. In fact, some studies it's as high as 2/3 of the people have a near-death experience. It's very common, at least to remember it. So he says, scenes from my life began to pass over my eyes at super high speeds. It's like running a film at high speed. I was looking at my life objectively for the first time. I saw myself sitting in a baby's high chair, throwing food on the floor. And there was my mom telling me that good boys do not throw their food on the floor. Then he saw himself at the lake in a little boat with his father. And he not only saw himself there at the lake at this young age that he doesn't remember anymore, he remembers his father's reactions and his father's worries and fears about him falling out of the boat. So he not only got to see his own life and remember all of his impressions and all of his feelings, millions and millions of events in his life, but also the feelings of those around him. At the end of his life review, everything got very dark and quiet. He says, I felt myself moving through a dark void. It was like a tunnel. I seemed to be picking up speed. And as I went, I felt homesick for the earth. Then a light appeared and started floating toward me. It grew larger. Soon it engulfed me. I felt as if I had become one with the light. It seemed to have a knowledge of everything there is to know, and it accepted me as part of it. I felt all-knowing. Suddenly, everything seemed to make perfect sense. A lot of people who have these experiences have been through hard lives. I mean, frankly, most of us have had some difficulty, challenges, strife, stress, whatever it is. And oftentimes we're frustrated with the world. We feel like we're kind of victims. But he said, the world seemed to be in total harmony. The questions and answers came to me on a much higher level of thought. I felt better than I'd ever felt before in my life. It was as if I were bathing in total love and understanding. I felt like I was an energy form that could never be destroyed. So this is a very transcendent spiritual view. Many people describe the light as something they can merge with, this bright light, but it's also a personage in most cases. And that personage is usually brilliant, bright light that normally would just be impossible to even look at, like looking at the sun. But it's also radiating from a person, and it's easy to look at. It's comforting, it's loving, it's all-embracing. And this young man was extremely competitive, self-centered in his own terms, and really a hard, macho guy. This experience of seeing the light, seeing how life was so beautifully put together, and how he had a purpose in it, gave him a much more loving and cooperative spirit for the rest of his life. And Professor Ring, checks in with this young man every few years. And instead of going into the original field where he thought he would just make a lot of money, he's gone into the care fields, health care and counseling. And that's not unusual. So the other MDE I was going to mention to you represents a less positive one. Almost all the messages are positive and beautiful, life-changing. The most valuable thing anybody could ever imagine is what's said. But there are some negative experiences. 10 to 15% of people have a painful near-death experience. It's not quite what you might think of as hell, because it's instructive, and all the judgments are from yourself. It's not an outside God that somehow condemns you. It's instead a kind of a object lesson. And the most dramatic story, I think, a negative one, was Dannion Brinkley. Wrote a book fairly recently called Saved by the Light. And Dannion was in the military in Vietnam. He was a sharpshooter. His job was to take out enemy military leaders. He killed dozens of people, usually at hundreds of yards away, with a team of observers telling him where to shoot and when to shoot. And he thought he was doing his patriotic duty. Even after that, he went to work undercover for the government and killed politicians, according to his book, probably in South America. And he was a pretty mean, tough son of a gun. He was struck by lightning. Tremendous blow that should have killed him. He was hit so hard, the metal in his shoes soldered and melted into the floor. He was in the hospital and on recovery for a year and a half. But while they were trying to resuscitate him and bring him back to life, he had that life review. And he saw every single time he had shot somebody. And he saw and felt what the person felt. Knew that that person was not going home to their family. Knew that their life was being snuffed out. Not only that, he saw and felt what all the members of their family and friends felt when they learned of the death, and how they suffered in their future life, and even future generations. If you can imagine this, it's like having 10 or 20 near-death or life reviews. Mind-boggling. But obviously, the lesson was very deeply taken. it changed him. He obviously dropped that military career. And I was lucky to meet him a few weeks ago, and I've heard him speak many times. He is now the most gentle, caring, loving person you could imagine. He's a giant of a man, but, he's changed his personality completely. This is what these experiences do for people. Maybe that's one reason they're the ones that come back and remember, because there's great value in them. So, the other part of near-death experiences is this amazing, wonderful experience of seeing the whole earth, sometimes just little areas, sometimes passing around the earth, or even getting outside the solar system. And these sound so fantastic, we can't believe it. I can't really believe it. But even if you take them as metaphor, they come back with beautiful messages. Often they come back with a great concern and devotion to nature, to the ecology. Many people become vegetarians when they come back to life, so to speak. A lot of changes. So Professor Ring has given us a dozen different lessons that come from these experiences, and also a dozen different common experiences. These occur in between half and 3/4 of all NDEs that they've studied. The first I mentioned was the out-of-body experience. Second is heightened senses. Almost everyone says, I could feel and see and hear everything at once and so beautifully and so incredibly rich. They've never had an experience like that, even on drugs. Intense and positive emotions. Absolute, joy and bliss. Passing through a tunnel. Encountering a mystical and or brilliant light. Almost always a light. Encountering other beings, either mystical, spiritual beings, like Jesus or an archangel, or frequently, recently deceased relatives. Sometimes even relatives you haven't met who might be your grandmother who died before you were born. And you only learn of this when these people go through and look at the old photo albums. And then they're just absolutely sure that's the person. A sense of alteration of space and time. Because these experiences, which would take days or weeks, for example, just the life review, can happen in a few seconds. And yet you bring it all back. You are absolutely sure of that experience. The life review, encountering heavenly realms. And I'll leave more of that for later. Encountering or learning special knowledge. That's a scientific term for it. We would call it spiritual wisdom. Encountering a boundary or a barrier. That's usually when they have to come back. Okay, and they have to make a decision. And they're often coached in that. Then there's a return to the body. And usually it's by choice. And you'll also get both Amy and Sean's stories on how they did that. And that's very dramatic and touching. So I want to end with a little excerpt. This will be from Amy's NDE, which is online. And she talks about a number of subjects, and I think you'll see the correspondence. Some of this will even sound like the meditation that was so beautiful that CL gave us, and may even remind you of the awakening to the Christ light that was mentioned in the reading from the Daily Word. Anyway, I'll try to skip through here. She was moving quickly to a safe and comfortable place through that tunnel. She says, I felt enveloped in love, capital L. There was someone tending to me. I was at absolute peace with this person. There was so much light coming from this person's face, I could scarcely see any features, except some slight, wavy, dark hair. And I believe this guide was male. But I felt a maternal sense coming from him, as if he were like a mother to me. So I hesitate to use a gender. We were traveling upward, I suppose. My own vibration was changing. There was a big change in frequency. I was tuning into a different radio station. This was on a grand scale. I was out in the universe, and I was being given a show, like having an astronomy teacher seeing the beauty of the universe while laying under the stars, except I was out there among the stars. And then I saw something like holographic words and numbers moving in front of the stars. I felt I was being downloaded with information, and that I understood everything. And I felt the full truth of laws and order in the universe. One thing that I held on to was that beautiful mathematics. By the way, she never liked math in school, but she loved it after that experience. Amy says, I'd also wondered at religion, but I received the sense that the actual religious affiliation wasn't important. One's religion, no matter which religion a person joined or didn't join on earth, the real religion was always written in their heart. It was about who the person was, not what label they wore or what they worshipped. It's your frequency, tone, a mathematical equation, and a vibration. That says it all, and you can't tinker with that. You are just who you are. So she says, I learned that we are here to learn how to love divinely and to become masters of ourselves, to nail down our lower natures and raise up within ourselves our own highest self. We are all working toward oneness again. To me, that's the message of unity. And this afternoon at 2 o'clock, that's the message we want to share more of with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. And for more fun stories, please come this afternoon. If you would like prayer support for challenges or celebrations, please ask our heart ministers. They will be available after the service here in the sanctuary and on the patio. Our heart ministers are wearing the lavender stoles. You are also invited to place a prayer request in our prayer box by the front door, or in the book center, or by selecting the prayer request button on our website. We will be praying for you throughout the week. It's time now for our prosperity celebration. Yippee! For love in action or credit card donations, there are envelopes provided in the back of each chair. I invite you to take your tithe or offering in your hand and be aware that God is the source of all our good. Repeat our affirmation with me. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
There's a light down this empty road, left or right. We choose which way to go. Sometimes we
Wander in the darkness,
on the search for where our hearts will live. But there is fear down this empty road, and we can with a question only heaven knows.
Every minute, every day, our choices can create a million possibilities.
Or just one fate,
With every hesitation and with every step ahead, we can turn this madness into love instead.
'cause there's a dream down this empty road, just let it be. And the truth will all be told. We'll be caught up in a whirlwind, always knowing that the light won't end.
Every minute, every day, our choices can create a million possibilities.
Or just one fate,
With every hesitation and with every step ahead, we can turn this madness into love instead.
see the light
See the light,
down this empty road, so clear and bright.
clear and bright.
All our dreams unfold. We've been lifted from the shadows, on the way to where this love can grow. There's a light down this empty road. 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 There's a light
down this road.
We are walking in the light, in the light, in the light. We are walking in the light of God. In the light, 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 in the light of God. We are walking in the light, in the light, in the light. We are walking in the light of God.
Please join me in blessing our children. Children, you are loved, special, and important. God loves you, and so do we. And now I feel real lucky. I get to bless the money this morning. This is really cool. Throw our hands together and we give thanks for those gifts and commit them to expanding the consciousness of the world. Thank you. But please stand and join us for the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that will
You are the love and the light right now. So let it shine and have a blast.